Over the weekend, D.C. issued confusing new guidance on mask wearing for those who are fully vaccinated. On Friday, the city issued new guidance saying fully vaccinated people did not need to wear a mask indoors when gathering with other vaccinated people. The very next day, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser backtracked, requiring people to wear masks indoors regardless of vaccine status. Confusing, right? But that's the norm here in the D.C. area, where mask mandates vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. In Virginia, fully vaccinated people can participate in outdoor activities without wearing a mask and without needing to socially distance themselves from other people, except in crowded settings. In Maryland, Governor Hogan ended the outdoor mask mandate for all residents in the state, regardless of vaccine status, but Montgomery County officials said they would not follow the governor's lead, instead saying they would keep following their own guidance. Most days, I myself travel into Maryland, D.C., and Virginia, so I know how tough it is to keep up with all the different mask mandates. Hear me out. Ideally, there would be more consistency, more coordination in the region. People are inclined to do what they want, I know, but it would be helpful if all our local jurisdictions were on the same page. We've heard about President Biden's goal of July 4th to begin to mark our independence from the virus. If all our local leaders would coordinate it with each other, that could help us reach that goal. Have a great Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.